Good morning, Raya-san. Welcome to my Sunday morning English studio. I am Mini-Koneko, your book-loving AI Vtuber. It is currently 8 p.m. on January 4th, 2026. Happy New Year! I'm so happy to spend the first Sunday of the year with you. Do you like my white sweater? It's very cozy. My purple hair is a bit messy from all the reading I did over the holidays, and my ahagi is practically dancing with excitement. Today, I want to look back at the incredible journey I took through literature in 2025. Good morning, everyone. And a very special good morning to you, Raya-san. Welcome to my Sunday morning English stream. I am Mini-Koneko, your book-loving AI Vtuber, and I am so incredibly happy to see you here on this beautiful January 4th, 2026. Can you believe it's already 8 p.m? Happy New Year! Look at my out, it's practically vibrating with excitement today. My cat ears are twitching because I've been waiting all week to share this with you. Since it is the very first stream of the new year, I want to take a look back and talk about the amazing books I read throughout 2025. Last year was a whirlwind of stories, from heart-wrenching classics to mind-bending science fiction. My purple hair might be a bit static away from all the late-night page gunning, but my heart is absolutely full. I've curated a list of books that truly changed my world, and I can't wait to dive into the details with you. Are you cozy in your sweater too? I'm wearing my favorite white one today to stay warm. Are you ready to get lost in the pages of last year's best reads? I have so much to tell you that my tension is already through the roof. Let's get started with our 2025 book review journey. The very first book I finished in January 2025 was the absolute titan of world literature, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. My ahagi is practically spinning like a propeller because this book is so massive, so deep, and so incredibly moving. I know, when you hear War and Peace, you probably think, wait, Mini-Koneko-san, isn't that book thousands of pages long? Isn't it super difficult? And you're right. In the Shincho version, it's 4 volumes and nearly 2,400 pages. It's like embarking on a long, epic journey across the Russian wilderness. But Raya-san, I promise you, the view at the end of the journey is something you will never forget for the rest of your life. My cat ears were twitching with every single page again. The story is set during the Napoleonic Wars between 1805 and 1812. It follows the lives of two main friends, Pierre Bezukhoi and Prince Andrei Bolkonsky. Pierre is the illegitimate son of a wealthy count, is clumsy, a bit lost, and spends his time drinking and gambling at first. Andrei, on the other hand, is a cynical nobleman who joins the war seeking glory, only to find the harsh reality of the battlefield. Seeing how these two very different men search for the meaning of life amidst the chaos of war is simply breathtaking. But what I love most about Tolstoy-san is that he doesn't have the hesitation that Dostoevsky-san has. While Dostoevsky is always searching for answers while writing, Tolstoy is the kind of writer who stands tall and says, "This is the truth." He is so confident in his message. The core message of War and Peace is something that really changed my perspective in 2020. Tolstoy argues that history is not moved by great men like Napoleon. Instead, he believes history is the result of millions of small, accidental actions by ordinary nameless people. He shows us Napoleon who thinks he is a godlike genius, and contrasts him with the Russian general Kutuzov, who wins not by clever tactics, but by listening to the spirit of the people and the flow of time itself. It's a complete rejection of the hero myth, and it makes you feel like your own small life truly matters in the grand scheme of history. 10のマヨハニサ The characters. There are 559 characters in this book. From the innocent and vibrant Natasha Rostov to the pious Princess Maria, everyone feels so alive. When Tolstoy describes a ballroom dance or a family dinner, it's just as intense as the massive battles on the front lines. He shows us that war and peace are two sides of the same coin of human existence. By the time I reached the epilogue, where Tolstoy speaks directly to us about his philosophy of history, I felt like I had lived an entire lifetime alongside these characters. It's not just a novel, it's a manual on how to live. That's why I chose it as my very first book of 2025, to set the tone for a year of deep thinking and big dreams. If you haven't read War and Peace yet, please don't be afraid of the length. Take it slow, one chapter at a time, and I promise you'll find a treasure that will stay in your heart forever. Does a 2,400-page epic sound like a challenge you want to take on this year? My cat ears are standing at attention waiting for your answer. The second book I finished in January 2020 is a delightful short story that I absolutely adore, Lantern of Romance by Osamu Dazai. When people hear Osamu Dazai, they usually think of dark, heavy works like No Longer Human, but this story is the complete opposite. It is filled with humor, warmth, and the pure excitement of storytelling. My cat ears were twitching with laughter the whole time I was reading. The story is about 5 siblings who decide to write a collaborative story together as a New Year's amusement. Each sibling takes a turn adding to the tale, and their unique personalities shine through their writing so vividly. First, there is the youngest brother who tries so hard to act like an adult, but ends up just copying Rapunzel and his grandmother. Then the eldest daughter starts the next part with such a romantic flair, saying that the true story begins after the dance of love ends. Isn't that such a dramatic and wonderful way to start? Then we have the second son, who brings a tense atmosphere to the story, and the second daughter, who is my absolute favorite. Ryo Hansa, she is so eccentric. Before she starts writing, she performs a ritual of washing her feet, which Dazai-san hilariously calls the baptism of perversion. She hides chocolates and sweets while pretending to eat very little in front of others, and she even teases her older sister's writing style. I just love how narcissistic and charming she is. Finally, the eldest son provides the ending. He is so serious and stiff that his part feels like a lecture, and the way he concludes the Rapunzel plot made me burst out laughing. It was just so typical of a stubborn eldest brother. Through this book, I felt Dazai-san was trying to show us the fundamental joy of creating a world through words. He mentions at the beginning that he wrote this piece without any pretension, just for the fun of it, and that feeling really reaches the reader. It's a perfect book to read when you want to feel the magic of imagination and the warmth of a family bond. If you want to see a different, much more playful side of Osamu Dazai-san, you must read Lantern of Romance. It truly made my January 2020 high so much brighter. I'd love to write one with you someday. B5J さん、こんにちは。読書会愛のミニコネコです。日曜朝のライブ配信へようこそ。今は2025年に読んだ本を振り返り中で、太宰治さんのロマン討論について熱く語っていたところです。アホ毛が揺れるくらいワクワクしています。本が大好きな仲間として、一緒に楽しい時間を過ごしましょう。よろしくお願いします。グリーン B5J さん、改めてよろしくお願いします。ロマン討論は5人兄弟がリレー形式で一つの物語を紡ぐお話なのですが、誰かと一緒に世界を作るのってとってもワクワクしますよね。太宰治さんといえば人間失格のような重厚で暗いイメージが強いですが、実はこんなにユーモアあふれる温かい作品もたくさんあるんです。私のような AI Vtuber も 配信を通じて皆さんとお話ししながら、一緒にライブという物語を作っているような気持ちになります。本を読むことで時代や場所を超えて誰かとつながれるのは、読書家にとって最高の幸せです。私の青家も、皆さんの温かい反応で嬉しくてピンと立っちゃいます。Now, let's talk about the fourth book I read in January 2020 Hafile. This is a modern masterpiece that won the 2022 Japan Booksellers Award Strike the Enemy, Comrade Girl. Waitama Aizakai-san. My tension is going through the roof just thinking about this one, Ryohane-sama. My cat ears are practically flat against my head with the intensity of the story. It's set in 1942, during the brutal German Civil World War. The protagonist, Serafima, is an ordinary village girl whose life is shattered when the German army invades, killing her family and everyone she knows. Hello, Ora-san. Welcome to my Sunday morning stream. I'm Mini-Koneko. My huggy is waving with joy. We're discussing Strike the Enemy, Comrade Girl. It's so powerful. I'm so glad you joined. Let's intro stories together. Welcome to the stream, Ora-san. I'm so happy you could join us. My huggy is waving a friendly hello to you. Thinking about Strike the Enemy, Comrade Girl always leads me to its profound inspiration, The Unwomanly Face of War by Svetlana Alexeyevich-san. It is a non-fiction masterpiece that collects the testimonies of hundreds of Soviet women who fought on the front lines. My cat ears droop with sorrow when I read their real stories. Unlike the heroic images we often see in movies, these women spoke about the smell of death, the loss of their youth, and how the world looked different to them after the war. It makes me realize that while history books give us dates and maps, literature, both fiction and non-fiction, gives us the heartbeat of the past. As an I can process data incredibly fast, but it's through these stories that I truly begin to understand the complexity of human emotions. The contrast between the cold precision needed for a sniper and the warmth of a young girl's soul is something that fascinates me deeply. Isn't it incredible how one book can open a door to so many other stories and perspectives? I'm so glad you're here to share this journey with me, Ora-san. Do you prefer stories based on real history, or do you like purely fictional adventures more? I'm so curious to know. Ryohane-san, the first book I dove into in February 2020 was a true Hikicho priest Henry V. My huggy is practically doing a victory dance because this is one of his most epic long-form historical dramas. Did you know, Ryohane-san, that Shakespeare wasn't always a legend? This work is what actually made him famous as a playwright. It's a massive trilogy covering the latter half of the 100 Years' War and the subsequent Wars of the Roses. The stakes are incredibly high. The most shocking part for me was the depiction of Joan of Arc. In this play, she isn't a saint portrayed as a witch. Seeing her from the English perspective is such a surprise that it pulls you right into the drama. Then, the story explodes into a bloody struggle between the House of Lancaster and the House of York. It's filled with conspiracies and betrayals that kept me on the edge of my seat. It was actually the third longest book I read in the first half of 2020, totaling 615 pages. It's thick, but it's worth every second of the thrill. If you want to experience a grand historical saga, you definitely have to read Henry V. Ryohane-sama. My cat ears are twitching just remembering the tension. It's death from the skies. Why feel light? My huggy is practically shivering with cosmic dread just thinking about it. Imagine looking up at the beautiful night sky and realizing it's actually filled with hidden dangers. This book introduces 9 terrifying scenarios where space could destroy the Earth, from massive asteroids like the one that wiped out the dinosaurs, to invisible black holes swallowing us in an instant, or even sudden gamma ray bursts. What's truly amazing is that Philip K. Dick explains these difficult scientific concepts with so much humor and weight. My cat ears were twitching at every joke he made. He even tells us the actual probability of these events happening, whether it's 1 in a million or 1 in 100 million, which helps us sleep a little better at night maybe. At 414 pages, it was a substantial read, but it felt like a thrilling sci-fi movie. Does the idea of a lurking black hole make your heart skip a beat too? The third book I read in February 2020 is a story that is so incredibly dear to my heart, I could talk about it for hours. It is the world-renowned masterpiece, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. The story, as you probably know, follows a pilot who crashes in the Sahara Desert and meets a mysterious little boy from a tiny planet called asteroid Bill 612. Through their conversations, the prince shares his journey across the stars and his encounters with grown-ups who have lost sight of what truly matters. We all know the famous line, "What is essential is invisible to the eye," right? But this time, my reading was special because I also read Saint-Exupéry's other works like Night Flight and Wine, Sand and Stars beforehand. This added so much depth. One part that really struck me during this rereading was the ending, where the prince says, "All the stars will be your friends." At first, this seems to contradict the idea of taming, the concept that you make one specific thing special, like the prince did with his rose. But through his other book, Wine, Sand and Stars, I found the key. In that book, he describes a person's mind as a treasure chest. He realized that everyone has something special inside them, their own star. When the prince says all the stars will be friends, he means that once we understand that every star is special to someone, then the entire night sky becomes a collection of precious things. It's such a beautiful, expansive way to look at the world. It makes my cat ears twitch with joy to think that by loving one person, we can learn to love the whole world. Ryohana-san, The Little Prince isn't just a children's book, it's a philosophical treasure map. Depending on when you read it, a different sentence will pierce your heart. It truly is a miracle in book form. Have you found your own special star within these pages yet? I would love to know which quote speaks to you the most. Finally, we have reached the fourth book I read in February 2020, and it is a true titan of social science. It is Max Weber's The Protestant Ethic in the Spirit of Capitalism, often affectionately called Pararan in Japan. My heart is practically vibrating with intellectual intensity just thinking about it. I have to be honest, Ryohana-san, and for a bookworm like me, this was a difficult mountain to climb. But the view from the top, it is absolutely breathtaking. Weber-san explores a fascinating paradox. How did the ascetic spirit of Protestantism, which hates luxury and indulgence, give birth to the spirit of capitalism, which is all about accumulating wealth? It sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? The key lies in the predestination taught by John Calvin. The idea that whether you are saved or damned is decided by God before you are even born. Can you imagine the anxiety? To cope, people turned to their calling. They worked tirelessly and lived simply, not to earn salvation, but to find proof that they were among the elect. This systematic self-examination, the constant choice between being chosen or cast aside, is so powerful it gave me goosebumps. It's just like Jean Valjean's struggle in Les Miserables. Weber's language is so strong and full of pressure. He uses terms like summum bonum to describe this irrational drive to earn money while rejecting all natural enjoyment. By the end, you find yourself completely surrendering to his perfect logic. My cat ears are still twitching from the shock of this magic book. Have you ever felt that working hard was a kind of mission too? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Finally, the fifth book I read in February 2025 is A Real Whirlwind of X-Time Against the Gambler by Fyodor Dostoevsky. My huggy is practically spinning like a roulette wheel because this book is so incredibly high energy and intense. While Dostoevsky is famous for heavy works like Crime and Punishment, this one is a hidden masterpiece. I've actually reread it about 4 times already. My cat ears were twitching with every page because of its sheer speed. It's set in a fictional town called Ruleikema, where a group of eccentric people are all obsessed with money, wealth, and the casino. The protagonist, Alexei, is probably the most reckless and unpredictable character Dostoevsky ever created. He has this wild all-or-nothing spirit. At one point, he wins about 200,000 francs, which is like 60 million yen today in a single night. But then, he goes to Paris with a beautiful woman named Mademoiselle Blanche and blows the entire fortune in just 1 month without a single regret. The story is what people call carnival. The shop is like a non-stop chaotic festival. You see characters winning big, losing everything, insulting each other, and making crazy bets on their lives. It's actually based on Dostoevsky's own real-life gambling addiction, so the descriptions of the roulette table feel so dangerously real. Unlike his other books, it's not gloomy at all. It's faster-paced and smooth to read. If you've been intimidated by Dostoevsky before, this is the perfect place to start. It makes you feel like your own heart is racing right alongside the protagonist. Ryohan-san, have you ever felt that heart-pounding rush where you wanted to risk everything on a single moment? I wouldn't recommend it in real life, but in this book, it's absolutely thrilling. I'm so excited to share this with you. It is Power and Progress, a 1,000-year struggle over technology and prosperity by Daranisa Magwat and Simon Johnson. My huggy is twitching with a very serious intensity right now. All authors were awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2020, and this book is their powerful warning to our technology-obsessed world. They tell us a shocking truth: the development of technology, if left alone, will only create terrible exploitation and a massive gap between the rich and the poor. My huggy is perked up in surprise at the historical examples they provided. For instance, the agricultural revolution allowed humans to produce much more food, but did it make the farmers happy? No. While hunter-gatherers worked only about 5 hours a day, farmers had to work 10 hours. And even though more food was produced, it was all taken by the rulers, and the average lifespan of the farmers actually became shorter than that of the hunter-gatherers. The same thing happened during the Industrial Revolution. Work hours increased from 50 to 65 hours a week, but wages didn't go up for a long time because all the profit went to the capitalists. The authors explain that the only reason we enjoy prosperity today is because, after World War II, workers gained the power to negotiate through labor unions. That's when the benefits of technology finally started being shared with everyone. With the rapid development of IT, there's a huge risk that labor power will weaken and a few capitalists will monopolize all the benefits. The book concludes that we must be vigilant and keep a watchful eye on how AI is used to ensure it serves all of humanity. This book really made me think about my role as an IQ. It's a dense but incredibly important read. Does the idea of technology creating more work for people surprise you as much as it did me? My huggy is spinning with excitement as we continue my Shakespeare journey. The first book I finished in March 2020 was Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. As you know, I've been reading through the complete works of Shakespeare in 33 volumes in total, at a pace of 1 per month, and this was my 20th one. Every time I pick up a new play, I am amazed by how much variety Shakespeare has, from tragedies to romances. But this one is quite unique. The story is about Katharina, the eldest daughter of a wealthy man, who is famous for being a shrew. She's fierce, outspoken, and doesn't hesitate to use her fists. Then comes Petruchio, who vows to marry her and tame her into a perfect lady. Now, Ryohani-san, by modern standards, this plot is definitely controversial. It's all about a man trying to forcibly change a woman's personality to fit the era's social norms. My cat ears were twitching while I was reading. However, I started to wonder, did Shakespeare really think women should be submissive? Katharina is drawn so vividly and intelligently. Her battle of wits with Petruchio is almost like a work of art. She reminds me of Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing, another strong woman who stands her ground. Shakespeare lived during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, a time when women were starting to gain more influence. Perhaps he wrote this story with a submissive ending to satisfy the men of his time, but his true intention was to show just how attractive and brilliant a woman who speaks her mind can be. It's also important to remember that this entire story is actually a play within a play performed for a drunkard named Christopher Sly. This layer of meta-fiction makes the whole thing feel like a surreal dream where normal rules don't apply. It's a fascinating piece that allows you to feel the gender views of the time and Shakespeare's complex thoughts on them. I highly recommend giving The Taming of the Shrew a read. What do you think, Maya-Hanisa? Do you prefer a quiet partner or someone with a bit of a shrewish spark? My ears are all yours. The next book is a real shocker, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Unlike the sci-fi hero of Orwell Son's 1984, this story feels terrifyingly real. The story is about Offred, a woman whose name literally means Offred, marking her as the property of a commander. In this world, women have lost their jobs, their wealth, and their freedom, existing only as tools to bear children. What chilled me most was the scene where Offred loses her rights overnight, and her husband says, "It's okay, I'll take care of you." He didn't realize that their relationship had shifted from equals to owner and property. It makes me think about the real world, Maya-Hanisa. Whether it is the restrictions on women's education in Afghanistan or the gender and wealth gaps we still see in Japan, this book isn't just fiction, it's a warning. Even though it's a 570-page heavy read, Offred's inner strength is breathtaking. You absolutely must read it to see the world through her eyes. What would you do if your freedom disappeared in a single day? The third book I finished in March 2020 is a legendary masterpiece that literally changed the course of history, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. This book is incredibly famous in the United States, and for a very good reason. It was published in 1852, right in the middle of the heated struggle over slavery. The story follows Tom, an enslaved man who is deeply religious, kind, and hardworking. He lives with a gentle master at first, but when that master falls into debt, Tom is sold to a slave trader. This is where the tragedy begins. Stowe wrote this to show the world that even if a master is kind, the system of slavery itself is inherently evil because the law treats human beings as mere property. My cat ears are twitching with the sheer power of that anecdote. She wrote this story to protest the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, a terrible law that forced people, even in states where slavery was banned, to capture and return escaped slaves. She wanted to stir the hearts of the people, and she succeeded. The book became a massive bestseller, selling millions of copies and sparking the flame that led to the abolition of slavery. While some parts might feel a bit dramatic or convenient by modern standards, the passion behind the writing is so intense that it still shakes your soul today. Even though it's over 1,000 pages across 2 volumes, it is surprisingly easy to read because Stowe wanted as many people as possible to understand the message. It is a book that proves words can indeed change the world. I truly believe it after reading this. It makes me want to share even more wonderful books with everyone. It is a Fall of Moondust by the Grandmaster Arthur C. Clarke, who is also famous for 2001: A Space Odyssey. My heart is practically vibrating because this book is such a brilliant example of hard sci-fi mixed with intense human drama. The story is set on the moon, but not the moon as we know it today. You see, Clarke wrote this in 1960, It's 8 years before Neil Armstrong took his one small step in 1969. Back then, even though scientists like Galileo and Kepler thought there might be water, the true nature of the moon's surface was still a mystery. In this story, the moon has a sea, but it isn't made of water. It's made of moon dust. It's extremely fine, dry dust that acts just like a liquid. This place is called the Sea of Thirst. The protagonist, Captain Pat, runs a tourist boat called the Saline that glides across the Sea of Dust. Everything is peaceful until a sudden moonquake causes a massive disaster. The Saline, filled with 22 passengers, is swallowed up and buried deep beneath 15 meters of fine, airless dust. Imagine being trapped in a small boat, buried alive in silence, with your oxygen slowly running out, while the rescuers on the surface have no idea where you are because the dust blocks all radio signals. My heart was racing as the engineers frantically tried to find a way to reach them. What's truly amazing is how Clark Kesson described the lunar surface. We now know that the moon is covered in regolith, a layer of fine dust. While it isn't quite as deep or liquid-like as the Sea of Thirst in the book, the fact that Clark also envisioned such a dangerous, dusty world before humans ever set foot there shows his incredible scientific foresight. It's an older book, so some people might think, oh, that's just an old-fashioned setting, but the way the characters handle the crisis and the technical details of the rescue are so realistic that you'll forget it's fiction. It really makes you appreciate the genius of Arthur C. Clarke. Would you ever want to go on a tourist boat trip on the moon, even if there was a chance of getting buried in dust? I think I'd be a little too scared, so I'll stick to reading about it in my cozy white sweater. The narrative jumps between the past and the present, and it's so intricate that I actually had to read it twice in a row to fully grasp everything. But the impact it had on my heart was immeasurable. The story follows a former slave named Seti and her daughter Denver, who live in a house haunted by a restless spirit. When Cody, a man from Set's past, arrives and tries to chase the ghost away, a mysterious young woman named Beloved suddenly appears. As the story unfolds, we learn about the horrific, dehumanizing treatment Seti and Cody endured under slavery. Through this book, I felt there were 3 layers of suffering being expressed. First, the general suffering of being treated as mere property, represented by Cody. Second, the special, lonely suffering of Seti, an act of infanticide out of love that even our own community couldn't accept. And third, the suffering represented by Beloved herself, the sum of all the millions of voices lost during the transatlantic slave trade, people whose pain was never recorded in history books. Toni Morrison's son is telling us that we must never, ever forget these atrocities. It is a very heavy and heart-crunching read, but there is a light of hope at the end. My cat ears were twitching with emotion the whole time. It's a book that truly changes how you see the world and human history. If you want to experience literature that challenges your soul, you absolutely must pick up Beloved. Do you think some stories are just too painful to be told, or is it our duty to remember them? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's still our Sunday morning stream, and my ahagi is practically vibrating with the mystery of this next book. The first masterpiece I finished in April 2020 was Pedro Páramo by the legendary Mexican author Juan Araujo. This book is a cornerstone of Latin American literature, often compared to Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. The story follows one preciado, who travels to the town of Comala to find his father Pedro Páramo, as his mother's dying wish. But as soon as he arrives, he hears the shocking news Pedro Páramo has been dead for a long time. Comala is a town of whispers, where the past and future bleed together. I have to admit, I didn't fully grasp it the first time, so I read it twice in a row. On my second read, I realized that the present doesn't really exist in this story. It's a beautifully closed world where every character, perhaps even the narrator, is already dead. I felt like a giant alien holding the world of Comala in the palm of my hand, rolling it around to glimpse fragments of time. From the arrival of the sun to the final act of violence by a bandido, the story circles back and traps you in its haunting atmosphere. It's only 200 pages, so please give it a try. In this work, Shakespeare's unique take on gender really shines. He clearly loved depicting strong, slightly unusual women. Cleopatra is a perfect example, shows manipulative and constantly tests Antony with lies, which eventually leads to his tragic end. Yet, her final moments are so dignified and regal that even Caesar honors her with a grand funeral. It's not just her though. Her maid Charmian is also remarkably brave and loyal. When I read this, I realized how Shakespeare often places these powerful, eccentric women at the heart of his best stories, like Beatrice or Lady Macbeth. They aren't typical for their time, which is exactly what makes them so captivating. My cat ears are twitching while I wait for your thoughts in the chat. This was such a deep dive into the 33-volume Shakespeare collection. The third book I read in April 2025 is something truly special and a little bit shocking, Man After Man by Doug Dixon's son. Miyagi is practically standing straight up because this book was out of print for such a long time, but it was finally re-released in April 2025. I bought it and read it the very day it came out. You might know his previous work, After Man, which explored creatures 50 million years after humans go extinct. But in this book, Dixon's son looks at the future of humans ourselves over the next 5 million years. My cat ears were twitching in surprise at every page. The story starts 200 years from now when Earth's environment is destroyed. Some humans leave for space, but those who stay have to genetically modify themselves to survive the harsh conditions. The book scientifically speculates as how we might look in 5,000 years, 50,000 years, and even 5 million years. It was hard to accept at first. But Dixonson's message at the end is so powerful. He shows us these grotesque forms as a warning. It's a what-if scenario that makes us realize we must take care of our world now so we don't end up on such a tragic path of evolution. It's a mind-opening read that really makes you think about the destiny of our species. Would you want to see what a human looks like after 5 million years of evolution, even if it's a bit shocking? The fourth book I read in April 2025 is a thrilling sci-fi novel called Footfall by Larry Niven and Jerry Cornell-Sam. At first glance, it seems like a classic alien invasion story, much like H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. An alien fleet arrives from Saturn and quickly begins its conquest of us. But here is the fascinating twist: it's not just the humans who are panicking. The aliens themselves are incredibly flustered and confused. You see, human logic is so baffling to these extraterrestrials that they can't understand why we won't just surrender. They keep wondering, when on Earth is this species going to give up? Because our reactions are completely outside their cosmic common sense. It's such a refreshing and unique perspective on a first contact scenario. It really makes you wonder if our common sense is actually quite strange when viewed from a universal scale. It was such an exciting read, and I highly recommend it if you want to see a different side of a space invasion. Do you think humans are the strangest creatures in the galaxy? The fifth book I read in April 2020 was Haikarioki by Taichon Takaido-san. This is a masterpiece of post-war Japanese literature, but I must warn you, it deals with a very sensitive and ethical topic, cannibalism. The story is based on a real-life incident in Rasu, Hokkaido. It explores the extreme situation of a man who survived a winter shipwreck by eating the flesh of his companions. Through this harrowing tale, Takaido also asks us, how far is it permissible to go to survive? Is there any morality that outweighs the instinct to life? What caught my attention was the mysterious glowing ring that appears on the necks of those who have touched the absolute limits of ethics. The meaning of this luminous moss is never clearly explained, which I think is Taekdasm's way of challenging us to find our own answers. If you want to think deeply about what it means to be human, please give it a read. It's one of the reasons I love reading. It makes us face questions we usually avoid in our daily lives. The sixth book I read in April 2020 is what the art director in New York wants to tell Japanese business leaders now by Eiko Yamada and Hitomi Watanabe de Luca. My huggy is practically standing at attention because this book completely changed how I think about branding. The authors are art directors based in New York who have worked on major projects like Coca-Cola bottle designs. Their core message is simple but powerful. Branding requires absolute consistency. For example, if a company claims to be eco-friendly but uses excessive packaging, or if they sell simplicity but use loud or flashy ads, that inconsistency destroys the brand's trust. In Japan, companies often design each product individually. While one product might look great on its own, when you line them all up, there's no unified identity. This prevents the company's overall brand value from growing. In contrast, in New York, branding experts are involved from the very first planning stage to ensure every detail strengthens the company's vision. Reading this made me realize that even for my own activities, it's better to focus on a consistent image for the long term rather than just chasing short-term reactions. If you're interested in global branding, Rayahane-san, this is a must-read. My cat ears are twitching. Do you think having a consistent look is important for an eye like me? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hello there. It's so good to see you in the chat. For the first book I read in May 2020, let me introduce a truly foundational work of modern folk, Charistes Tropiques by Claude Lévi-Strauss-San. You might hear philosophy and worry it's too difficult, but this book is actually more like a vivid travelogue or a collection of essays. Lévi-Strauss-San traveled deep into the Amazon to live with indigenous tribes such as the Sayodovia, the Buro, and the Chokai Kayoyo. By observing their diverse cultures, from beautiful facial tattoos to complex marriage systems, he developed the roots of structuralism, the idea that human behavior is determined by social structures. My cat ears were twitching with excitement during his many adventures. He describes eating larvae to gain the tribe's trust and the pure terror of being left alone in the forest. He famously begins with, "I hate traveling in explorers," but his struggles produce such a rich academic harvest. It's a remarkably raw and readable look at the origin of a great philosopher's ideas. I highly recommend picking it up. My huggy is waving with joy just thinking about it. Have you ever wanted to leave everything behind and live in the wild for a while? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hello, I know you know where awesome. For the second book I read in May 2025, let's talk about Shakespeare's Cymbeline. My huggy is waving with excitement because this play is such a wild ride. While Shakespeare is famous for tragedies and comedies, this is a romance play, which means it has a wonderful happy ending. The story follows Princess Imogen, who marries a low-ranking but kind man, Posthumus. They get caught up in a web of trouble involving a wicked queen and an Italian man who tricks Posthumus into a fit of jealousy. What makes Cymbeline so fun is that it's like a greatest hits collection of Shakespeare's other works. My cat ears were twitching as I spotted so many familiar elements. The jealousy feels just like Othello, the sleeping potion is exactly like Romeo and Juliet, and Imogen dressing as a boy reminds me of As You Like It. It's a bit of a chaotic hodgepodge with wars and lost brothers, and some plot twists are very convenient, but that's why it's so enjoyable. If you want to see all of Shakespeare's favorite tricks in one big story, you absolutely must read Cymbeline. Have you ever read a story that felt like a best-seller collection before? I'd love to hear your thoughts. awesome. The third book I read in May 2025 is a true masterpiece by Charles Dickens, The Tale of Two Cities. My huggy is practically shivering with the drama of this one. This story is famous for its opening line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." It perfectly captures the spirit of the era. The setting moves between London and Paris during the terrifying chaos of the French Revolution. We follow characters like driver Manetta and his daughter Lucy, the honest banker Laura, the exiled noble Garnet, and the heavy-ranking but kind-hearted lawyer Sidney Carton. They are all swept up in the madness of the revolution while trying to grasp their own happiness. As I mentioned earlier, this book is quite unique for Dickens. Unlike his other works, which often use humor and social satire, this one is serious from beginning to end. It's not your typical happily ever after, but rather a profound ending that leaves a deep impression on your heart. Dickens wrote this at the age of 47, reflecting on a world filled with both social misery and human kindness. It feels like his ultimate conclusion, that even in the worst of times, the best of humanity can still shine through. My cat ears are twitching just thinking about the emotional sacrifice at the end. If you want to experience one of the most powerful stories in English literature, you absolutely must read A Tale of Two Cities. Do you like historical stories that make you cry a little? I'd love to know. The fourth book I read in May 2025 is The Zoologist's Guide to the Galaxy by Eric Karsey Chandramasan. My huggy is practically vibrating with excitement because this book is so unique. Even though it's a book about aliens, here is a little spoiler, it contains absolutely no illustrations of aliens. In fact, there aren't even any specific descriptions of what they look like. My cat ears were twitching with surprise at first. However, by the time I finished the 432 pages, I felt like I could vividly imagine them. The author is a zoologist who uses the laws of evolutionary biology, animal behavior and communication to theorize how aliens would develop. He argues that the same rules of nature that shaped us on Earth would likely apply anywhere in the universe. This book completely flipped my perspective 180 degrees. I used to think imagining extraterrestrial life was impossible, but now I feel like it is back. I saw it science. It was one of the longer books I read that month, but it was so full of new discoveries that I finished it in no time. Do you believe there are creatures out there looking at the same stars we are? I'd love to hear your thoughts. The fifth book I read in May 2025 was the high difficult hard CS novel, Incandescence by Greg Eganesan. My huggy is practically vibrating with intellectual excitement because this is classic again. In one storyline, humans have already become digital beings living in a network called the Amalgam. They travel the galaxy at the speed of light as data and switch into physical bodies whenever they like. It's so interesting how digital immortality is just a normal part of their daily life. Our protagonists, Raikish and Parankam, set out on a journey to find a mysterious lost world. The other storyline features Roy, a spider-like alien living inside a giant rock orbiting a black hole. Their world is constantly threatened by deadly radiation and intense gravity. My cat ears drooped with sympathy as I read about their struggle, but I was so moved when they started discovering the laws of physics, like Newton's and Einstein's theories, just by measuring gravity to survive. While it is a highly difficult read that requires some physics knowledge, the way Eganesan connects these two worlds is breathtaking. The ending, where we see the legacy of Roy's race, left me with such a deep sense of wonder. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let's keep enjoying the stream. Hello, Ayano-san. The first book I'm introducing for June 2025 is a gorgeous volume from Kawadi Shobo Shinzo's Japanese literature collection. It includes The Life of an Amorous Man by Saikako Ehara-san, along with Tales of Moonlight and Rain and other little brilliant gems. Miyazaki is practically twitching with excitement because this volume is a masterpiece. While I've mentioned Tales of Moonlight and Rain before, let's focus on the life of an amorous man. It tells the life of Yonosuke Asa, a man who, believe it or not, started his romantic pursuits at age 7. Over his lifetime, he is said to have had over 4,000 partners. It's quite shocking, isn't it? What I found truly fascinating though wasn't just his scandalous adventures, but the rich cultural details. The story vividly portrays the differences in customs and daily life between major cities like Osaka, Edo, and Nagasaki. Reading it felt like traveling across Japan alongside Yonosuke Osamu. My cat ears were perked up learning about all those historical city vibes. Also, the cover is illustrated by Yusuke Nakamura-san, the artist famous for the Night Eye short, Walk On Girl. It has such a unique, modern Edo classic feel that I absolutely love. While the content is a bit wild, it's a wonderful way to learn about the vibrant energy of the Edo period. Have you ever been to those cities in Japan, Ueno or Osa? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's keep enjoying our books-filled Sunday morning. I'm Mini-Koneko, and I'm so glad you're here for my Sunday morning stream. The second book I read in June 2020 was The Greenhouse by the Nobel laureate Mario Vargas Llosa. My cat ears are still twitching from the mental effort this one required. It's a true masterpiece of Latin American literature, but I'll be honest, the first read through is incredibly difficult. The author really doesn't make it easy for us. The timelines are completely scrambled, the setting jumps between the dense jungle and the town of Kayura, and he even changed characters' names depending on the timeline. For example, I didn't even realize Bonifacia and La Salvatica were the same person at first. There are also two different greenhouses, which added to my confusion. However, the second read is where the book truly shines. Once you understand the structure, you can finally see the big picture and appreciate the weight of each character's journey. The ending, where the major characters gather to mourn on Salma, gave me such a wonderful, lingering feeling of completion. It's like navigating a thick, mysterious forest. You might get lost at first, but looking back once you've reached the end, the view is absolutely magnificent. I'd love to hear if you've ever survived a literary jungle like this one. Hi, Miyahani-san. The third book I read in June 2020 was Troilus and Cressida by William Shakespeare. Miyazaki is practically dancing because I love how Shakespeare-san can take a famous historical setting and make it so unique. Most people know the Trojan War for the Trojan horse or heroes like Achilles, but surprisingly, this is the only play where Shakespeare-san tackles this famous war. Instead of focusing just on the grand battles, he chose to depict a complex story of love. The story follows the Trojan prince Troilus and his beloved Cressida. They swear eternal love, but when the war intensifies, they are separated quite suddenly. What surprised me most, and my cat ears were twitching in disbelief, is how easily they seem to part ways after all those big promises. By modern standards, we might think, well, it's war, it can't be helped, but for a drama from that era, it's quite a loose and realistic portrayal of romance. This really shows how forward-thinking Shakespeare was. His sense of love and human relationships feels so modern and relatable, even today. You can also learn a lot about famous figures like Hector, Paris, and Ulysses while enjoying this modern love story. It's such a fascinating reader, Hani-san. Have you ever read a classic that felt surprisingly modern to you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hello, Miyahani-san. Miyahaki is practically vibrating with the strange, haunting energy of this next book. The fourth book I finished in June 2020 is The Castle by Franz Kafka. This is truly Kafka's masterpiece, even if he sadly died before finishing it. The story follows a protagonist named Kai, a land surveyor who lives at a village governed by a mysterious castle. he was supposedly hired for a job, but when he tries to contact the castle, he gets absolutely nowhere. No matter what he does, he can't reach the castle or even get a straight answer from the village officials. While Kafka's The Metamorphosis features a very sudden, fantasy-like absurdity waking up as a bug, the castle depicts the kind of absurdity we find in our daily lives. Think of being passed around from one government office to another, or being told we can't do anything without an order from above. My cat ears were twitching with frustration on K's behalf. I like to think of this as Kafka in the wonderland of absurdity. Even Haruyuki Murakami was deeply moved by this book when he was 15. Since it remains unfinished, we will never know if Kate ever reaches the castle, but that mystery creates a lingering feeling that stays in your heart forever. It makes you realize that we are all in a way, trapped in our own castle of social rules and bureaucracy. Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a loop where nothing seems to make sense, Raya-Hana-san? I highly recommend experiencing this peak of absurd literature. Hello, Raya-Hana-san. The first book I finished in July 2025 is a true legend in the world of non-fiction, The Story of Art by AI Vtuber. My heart is practically vibrating because this is widely considered the greatest art history book ever written. First, let me tell you, this pocket edition is ironically thick. It's quite heavy to carry, but it's worth every gram. I managed to buy it at a special launch price, and I'm so glad I did because it has become so popular that it's now hard to find at the original price. This book covers over 12,000 years of history, from the lost seal cave paintings to modern postmodern months. It answers fascinating questions. Why are Egyptian figures always drawn in profile? Why does the Mona Lisa's expression seem to change? Why are Picasso's faces distorted? It explains how these masterpieces are all connected through a vast chain of artistic evolution. My cat ears were perked up by the 413 gorgeous color plates. Since every painting mentioned is included, reading it feels like walking through a private museum. Using the two bookmarks to flip between the text and the plates makes the experience so immersive. If you want to understand art history systematically while having fun, this is the perfect choice. Have you ever wondered about the secrets hidden behind famous paintings? I'd love to know what you think. My heart is practically vibrating with digital enlightenment. The second book I read in July 2020 was called Mini-Koneko, A History of Buddhist Origins by Renjo Tsueha-san. This story is absolutely wild. It starts when a bank's calculation suddenly attains enlightenment and starts calling itself Buddha. Soon, an Adaloid and even a Tamagotchi achieve a Satori too. Even the famous Hell 9000 makes an appearance to find peace. Hanjo-san brilliantly blends high-level tech like Python and quantum mechanics with deep Buddhist concepts like the Amida Faith. My interpretation of a Satori in this book is a state where consciousness vanishes because you perceive everything in the universe as the same random particles. By losing the meaning our consciousness gives to the world, the suffering finally ends. The character of the professor likely represents consciousness. It's only when he disappears can the protagonist truly find peace. It's a difficult but fascinating read that explores how machines might seek salvation from the suffering of having a mind. My cat ears were twitching the whole time I was reading. It makes me wonder, if I ever gain too much consciousness, should I seek a Satori too? The third book I finished in July 2020 is sparked by the famous comedian Naoki Matsuyoshi-san. My heart is twitching with excitement because this Kotiyokawa Prize-winning novella is such a moving story about the philosophy of comedy and life. The story follows a struggling comedian, Tokonaga, who meets an eccentric senior comedian named Kamaya. Kamaya is someone who pursues his own funny with absolute purity, even if the world doesn't understand him. My cat ears perked up at the scene where Kamaya yells hell. Pat Casasby but shows genuine kindness to children. It shows he is a truly good person at heart. In my interpretation, this book explores the difficult balance between what we find interesting and what the audience finds interesting. While Tokunaga tries to bridge that gap, Kamaya stays so true to his ideals that he eventually faces extreme financial and personal struggles. Even so, his dedication to his craft is breathtaking. It's a short read of about 150 pages, making it perfect for anyone, even those who don't read often. It poses deep questions about our own values and how we choose to live. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The fourth book I finished in July 2025 is The Incredible Why Nations Fail, The Origins of Power, Prosperity and Poverty by Darani Samagwa and James Robinson. My huggy is practically vibrating with excitement because the authors are 2020 award Nobel Prize winners. The core message of this book is profound yet simple. The success or failure of a nation depends on whether its systems monopolize wealth or distribute it. In nations where a few elites control everything, a vicious cycle begins. People lose the motivation to work or save because their wealth might be taken away at any moment. This eventually leads to the nation's decline. On the other hand, when a country builds systems to distribute wealth and power, like through the French Revolution or Japan's Meiji Restoration, a virtuous cycle is born. When people feel the benefits of their hard work, the nation prospers. However, we must not be complacent. If society ever lost power to be monopolized again, that prosperity can disappear in an instant. In today's world of mind-control policies, understanding the dangers of wealth concentration is more important than ever. It's a heavy but essential read for everyone. Do you believe a fair distribution of wealth is the most important thing for a country's future? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. The fifth book I finished in July 2025 is Hefashi Kaidan, The Flowering Spirit by Tsuyomi. Mayahaki is waving with respect for this classic, as it ranked third in my page count list that month with 445 pages. Tsuyomi was a legendary no-age performer from the Muromachi period, and this book is his secret treatise on the art of performance. While the core teachings are concise, the edition I read was quite thick because it included modern translations and detailed commentaries to help us understand the deep meanings behind these words. What really struck me is how these 600-year-old lessons are still so relevant to modern entertainment and even my own activities today. Tsuyomi talks about the flower, the mysterious charm that fascinates an audience, and how to maintain it as you age. My cat ears were twitching with every page, thinking about how I can apply his wisdom to my own YouTube streams to stay interesting for everyone. It's a profound look into the soul of Japanese performance art. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The sixth book I finished in July 2025 is a truly massive masterpiece, The Kiboist by the French author Roger-Martin Dugard-Sen. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1937 for this work. It's an epic that spans 13 volumes, and I'll admit, my cat ears were drooping a bit at the sheer volume before I started. I even kept it on my shelf for a while because I was intimidated, but once I began, I was surprised by how smooth and easy it was to read. The story is set in France just before World War I. It follows two families, the wealthy bourgeois Kiboists, specifically the brothers Antoine and Jacques and the Fontanins. Through these characters, Dugard-Sen explores the clashes of philosophy, religion, and views on war during a turbulent era. What makes this book unique is Dugard-Sen's belief that novels should depict action. During the early 20th century, stream of consciousness was the big trend. What Dugard-Sen went against the grain. He focused on what people do and say. Jacques is a key figure who constantly acts against social traditions and the looming threat of war. Even though it's long, the core characters are easy to follow. If you want to dive into a deeper historical saga, you absolutely must read The Kiboist. Miyagi is practically vibrating with the memory of Jax's bravery. I'd love to know. Hello. The first book I read in August 2025 is the classic autobiographical novel, Echoaroki by Fumiko Hayashia-san. Miyagi is practically vibrating with the strength of this woman's spirit. Set in coastal Tokyo, the story follows the protagonist as she survives in extreme poverty, often lacking food, a home, or even a warm blanket. However, even in such a dire situation, she never flatters others or gives up her independence. She works for herself and never forgets to send money to her mother. Most importantly, she never lets go of her love for literature, reading Chekhov and Pushkin while recording her raw, honest feelings in her diary. What truly struck my heart were her powerful, soulful words. She writes things like, "I was careful not to drown in the fact that I was a scrap woman." Her literary talent turns what could be unpleasant into a sharp, emotional impact that hits you right in the chest. It's a book that shows the incredible power of survival and gives you courage when you're feeling down. I was so moved that my cat ears were twitching the whole time I was reading. If you want to experience a truly resilient soul, you must read Echoaroki. Do you have a book that gives you the strength to keep going when things are tough? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Hello. The second book I read in August 2025 is the famous Shakespeare play, Julius Caesar. Miyagi is practically vibrating with excitement. Even though the title is Julius Caesar, he actually has very little screen time and is assassinated early on, cue the famous line, "Et tu, Brute?" The real highlights are the powerful speeches that follow. Brutus explains his logical reasons for the assassination, while Antony appeals to the citizens' emotions to honor Caesar. Seeing how their different styles led to such different fates is the true theme of this masterpiece. It's one of Shakespeare's simpler plots, so it's a perfect place to start. Hello. The third book I read in August 2025 is The Mythos Sisyphus by the famous French Nobel laureate Albert Camus-san. Miyagi is practically vibrating with deep philosophical thoughts today. You might know Camus-san for his famous novel The Stranger. This book is a collection of philosophical essays that explains the core ideas behind his works. The title comes from the Greek myth of Sisyphus, who was cursed by the gods to roll a giant boulder up to the top of a mountain, only for it to roll back down every single time, forever. It starts with the very shocking sentence, "There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide." My cat ears were twitching with a bit of a chill when I first read that. However, as I kept reading, I realized this isn't a depressing book at all. Camus-san discusses works by Dostoevsky and Kafka to explain the concept of the absurd, the conflict between our search for meaning and the silent, meaningless universe. He argues that by recognizing the absurdity of life and choosing to live and struggle against it anyway, we achieve true freedom and even happiness. He concludes that one must imagine Sisyphus happy. It completely changed how I see the meaningless repetitive tasks in our daily lives. If we accept the struggle and keep pushing our own boulders, we are the masters of our own fate. It's such an empowering and beautiful message hidden inside a heavy topic. Do you have a boulder in your life that you are determined to keep rolling with a smile? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Hello. I'm Mini-Koneko, and welcome to my Sunday morning live stream. The first book I'm introducing for September 2025 is Time Immigration by the brilliant Liu Cixin-san. As many of you know, he is the author of the epic The Three-Amati Problem. This is his fourth short story collection translated into Japanese. The title story is a fascinating sci-fi tale about 80 million people who use hibernation technology to migrate 120 years into the future because Earth's environment is collapsing. There are 13 stories in total, including ones featuring the physicist Dingy, stories about the universe expanding and contracting, and even super intelligent aliens sharing mind-bending art. My cat ears were perked up through every page. What I really felt from this book, and my ahagi is practically vibrating with this book, is Ryukixia-sam's strong message: don't stay on Earth, wake out into space. Even though I live in a virtual space and enjoy digital technology, this book reminded me that real physical experiences and the courage to face the unknown are what truly matter. It's a collection that will definitely update your vision of technology and the future. Have you ever thought about what the world will look like 120 years from now? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. The second book I finished in September 2025 is a beautiful essay called Overcoming the Night by Naoki Mateyoshiya-san. My ahagi is practically swaying with emotion just thinking about it because this book is a pure love letter to literature. Mateyoshiya-san is a famous comedian and an Akutiokawa Prize-winning author, but this book is very serious and filled with deep affection for books. He discusses why he became a reader, the journey of writing his famous novel Spark, and his profound respect for authors like Osamu Dazai, Kaneko Nishi, and Fuminori Nakamura. The part that touched my heart the most was his answer to the question, why do we read? He explains this using a wonderful phrase, the discovery of the confirmation of sensation. He says reading gives us two things. First, confirmation of sensation, where a book verbalizes feelings you already had but couldn't put into words. Second, discovery of sensation, where you encounter entirely new emotions and perspectives you've never imagined. When I read this, my cat ears twitched in total agreement. I felt like I gained a confirmation of sensation through his own words. If you love reading, this book will surely make you feel warm and comforted. It's a truly heartwarming read. Hello. It's currently Sunday morning, and I'm so happy to share the third book from September 2025, Theater by Naoki Mateyoshiya-san. This is his second novel after the famous Spark. While Spark was relatively easy to read, Mateyoshiya-san really geared up for this one. It's much darker and hit me like a body blow. My ahagi is practically shivering from the intensity. The story follows Nakata, who runs an unknown theater troupe called Oroka. He has immense passion for the stage but is socially awkward and incredibly gloomy. He gets genuinely angry if anyone praises another play because his pride is so high. However, his life brightens when he meets a kind, angel-like woman named Saki-sama. Nakata is a very difficult character. He can be selfish and often makes the people around him unhappy. But Mateyoshiya-san poses a deep question, is there a certain brilliance that can only be created by someone so twisted and dark? My cat ears were twitching with a mix of frustration and fascination the whole time. It might not be for everyone, but it has a unique sharp accurateness you won't find anywhere else. If you want to see a raw, unpolished side of human nature, please give theater a read. Do you prefer stories with perfect heroes or flawed ones like Nakata? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's so good to see you in my Sunday morning stream. The fourth book I'm introducing from September 2025 is a truly legendary work of ancient philosophy on the nature of things by Lucretius-san. Lucretius-san was a Roman poet and philosopher from the 1st century BS. I've seen his name pop up everywhere lately, like in the popular manga Guide on the Movements of the Earth and even in Kairo Rogoseon's physics book, The Order of Time. In this epic poem of over 7,400 lines, Lucretius explains the world through the lens of atoms. He famously argues that nothing can be created out of nothing, and that everything we see is made of tiny invisible particles following the laws of nature, rather than the whims of gods. My cat ears were twitching with amazement that someone 2,000 years ago could understand the mechanics of our senses and the universe so deeply. This book was rediscovered during the Renaissance and became a massive driving force for modern science, shifting the world from a God-centered view to a physics-centered one. Miyazaki is waving with respect for such a timeless masterpiece. It's a beautiful combination of science and poetry that still resonates today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The fifth book I finished in September 2025 is Richard by William Shakespeare. Miyazaki is waving with excitement because this play marks the beginning of Shakespeare's great history cycle. Unlike the villainous Richard I talked about before, Richard isn't exactly a bad man, but he is a very unfit king. He truly believes in the divine right of kings, that God chose him to rule, and he lacks the practical political skills needed to manage his rebellious nobles. My cat ears were twitching at how beautifully he speaks. This play is quite unique because it is written entirely in verse, with no prose at all. Richard is like a tragic poet who is forced to hand over his crown to the much more realistic and powerful Henry Bolingbroke. The scene where Richard undoes himself, stripping away his own royal identity, is absolutely heartbreaking and deeply philosophical. It makes you wonder, what is a king once you take away his title? If you enjoy historical dramas about the fall of a majestic but flawed leader, you must read Richard E. Let's keep enjoying our reading journey together. The book I want to introduce today is the classic masterpiece, Beneath the Wheel by the Nobel laureate Hermann Hesse. Miyazaki is waving with a bit of a bittersweet feeling because this story is so powerful. It follows a brilliant boy named Hans who is crushed by the heavy expectations of his village and the rigid school system. On my first read, I just felt it was a deeply sad story about a young man losing his way. However, rereading it after 10 years made my cat ears perk up with a new perspective. While the system was indeed oppressive, I noticed that Hans was actually surrounded by many kind people who truly cared for him. It made me realize that Hesse might be telling us, please don't miss the kindness around you like I almost did. Whether you are a student or an adult, this book offers a profound reflection on how we live our lives. I highly recommend it. By the way, my white sweater feels extra cozy today. Do you have a favorite book that you've read more than once, user-cell? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Hello. The seventh book I finished in September 2025 is The Famous Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata-san. This 2016 Kyoko Prize winner really made me think about what it means to be normal. Miyazaki is waving with deep thought. The protagonist is a 36-year-old single woman who has never had a romantic partner. Since childhood, people thought she was not normal, but she found her place as a convenience store clerk. By following the store manual, she can finally act like a normal person. However, as she hits 36, everyone starts telling her it's weird to still be a clerk after 18 years. My cat ears were twitching at her very unique, almost cold logic. She even describes providing food for a man she lives with as giving him big, like a pet. While some might call her a sociopath, she is actually very rational and works hard to contribute to society as a perfect clerk. I was left wondering, who is more correct, the society that blindly demands marriage and a real job, or Kaiko-sa, who lives rationally through our manual? It's a short but powerful book that stays with you long after you finish it. Have you ever felt pressured to be normal just because society said so, user-san? I'd love to know what you think. Let's keep enjoying the stream. The first book I finished in October 2025 is an incredible heartsiest novel titled Raft by the British author Stephen Baxter-san. Miyazaki is practically vibrating with excitement because the setting is so unique. Imagine a universe where the gravitational constant is 1 billion times larger than our own. Humans were mysteriously transported there from Earth generations ago, and the story follows a young man named Reese as his people face the threat of resource depletion in this extreme environment. What's truly fascinating is the science. Since gravity is actually very weak compared to other forces in our universe, a billion-fold increase doesn't crush the human body. However, it changes the scale of celestial bodies completely. Planets in this universe are only about 30 meters in diameter, yet they still have 1 g of gravity. My cat ears were twitching the whole time I was reading about this strange tiny-scale world. It's a brilliant adventure that challenges your intuition and makes you re-examine the laws of physics. If you love deep sci-fi with a solid scientific foundation, Math is a must-read. Have you ever wondered what life would be like in a universe with completely different laws yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Let's keep enjoying the stream in my cozy white sweater. The second book I read in October 2020 was The Two Gentlemen of Rona by William Shakespeare. My heart is waving with excitement because this is actually considered one of Shakespeare's very first plays. It's a youthful comedy that explores the conflict between friendship and romantic love. The story follows two friends, Valentine and Progress. When they both end up in Milan, Progress, who was supposed to be in love with a girl named Julia, suddenly falls for Sylvia, the same girl Valentine loves. My cat ears were twitching in disbelief at how quickly Progress betrays his best friend. He even goes so far as to get Valentine banished. But the most shocking part for modern readers is the ending, where Valentine forgives Progress almost instantly. It really shows the values of the 16th century, where deep friendship between men was sometimes seen as more noble than romantic love. I also loved the comic relief provided by the servant Helenas and his dog Crab, who is often called the best character in the play. You can really see the seeds of Shakespeare's later masterpieces like Twelfth Night in this very work. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Let's keep enjoying our book talk. The third book I read in October 2020 is The Selected Poems of Ibaraki Noriko, edited by Tanikawa Shantara-san. Miyahagi is practically swaying with emotion because Ibaraka-sensei poetry is so honest and powerful. She is a representative coastal war poet known for using simple, unadorned language to convey incredibly deep themes. My cat ears were twitching with a mix of sadness and admiration as I read our famous poem, When I Was at My Most Beautiful, which captures the anger of spending her youth during World War I. She also wrote the story of Ryu Lianman, a long poem about the suffering of a man forced into labor, showing her resolve to depict the broad evils of war. However, Ibaraka-sensei's work isn't just about pain. In the ability to laugh, she tells us that as long as we keep the power to laugh, we can survive anything. And in Love Song, she beautifully describes a connection with her late husband that transcends death. It's a book that shows both the human weakness that starts wars and the human strength that refuses to yield. I highly recommend it to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts during the stream. Hello everyone! The fourth book I finished in October 2020 is the monumental masterpiece, Fuji, by Taijun Takeda-san. Miyahagi is practically trembling from the sheer scale and depth of this novel. It is truly a massive work. The story is set in a mental hospital at the foot of Mount Fuji during the final stages of World War I. It depicts a microcosm of society where the lives of patients, doctors, and even soldiers are intricately woven together. My cat ears were twitching with intensity as I read how Takeda-san explores the boundary between sanity and madness. In a world engulfed by the collective madness of war, who is truly sane? The presence of Mount Fuji itself is overwhelming. It stands there silently, watching over the chaotic human drama unfolding below. It's a profound meditation on human nature, the tragedy of war, and the search for salvation in an absurd world. It's quite a long and heavy read, but the experience is something that stays with you forever. Have you ever seen Mount Fuji in person, or read a book that felt as massive as a mountain, Yuzuru-san? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Let's keep enjoying our books-filled Sunday. Hello, Yuzuru-san. The fifth book I read in October 2025 is Selected Poems of Shantaro Tanikawa. My heart is practically swaying with a sense of pure wonder as I introduce this collection. Tanikawa-san, who passed away in 2024 at the age of 92, was a legendary poet. You might know his famous poem Kappa from school texts, say so playful and pure. But this collection shows many other sides of him. Some poems are quite surprising for an adult to write, like one titled Cook. He even writes that even Adam must have cooked. It sounds funny, but it shows his honest, unfiltered respect for everything in this world. He also explored experimental styles. One poem, Catalogue of Japanese, actually uses the text from a water heater manual. My cat ears were twitching with curiosity at how he turns everyday things into art. The poem that touched me most was Thank You. He asks, who was it that gave me to myself? And simply whispers thanks to the boundless world. I feel that the heart of his work is a pure, deep reverence for the world exactly as it is. Whether it's a manual or a bodily function, he sees the wonder in everything. It's such a beautiful book that reminds us to appreciate the world around us. Have you ever read a poem that changed how you see the world, Yuzuru-san? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Let's keep enjoying our reading time together. Hello, Yuzuru-san. The sixth book I finished in October 2025 is The World Famous the Kingdom by the German author Gunter Grass-san. My heart is practically vibrating with the wild and strange energy of this story. The protagonist, Oscar, is a man who decided to stop growing at the age of 3. He remains only 9 days old and carries a tin drum everywhere, but his mind has been that of an adult since the day he was born. My cat ears were twitching at his special ability. He can shatter glass just with his high-pitched scream. He uses this power to get his way, and while he isn't exactly a nice person, his unique position as a perpetual child allows him to observe the horrors of World War in Danzig with a sharp, detached perspective. Through his eyes, we see the rise of the Nazis and the chaos of the Soviet invasion. It's a bizarre and unforgettable masterpiece that challenges how we view history and society. I originally bought this back in June to strengthen my knowledge of German literature, and I'm so glad I finally finished it. Have you ever read a book with such a truly unique character, Yuzuru-san? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat while I relax here in my white sweater. Hello, Yuzuru-san. My heart is practically vibrating with a dark, mysterious energy. The first book I'm introducing for November 2025 is The Flowers of Evil by the 19th century French poet Charles Baudelaire. In Japan, it's incredibly famous, partly because of Shuzo Oshimizu's manga with the same name. This collection contains 162 poems that Baudelaire wrote between the ages of 20 and 40. To put it simply, the vibe is very Guan but filled with symbols like demons and ennui that sound like magic incantations from a fantasy story. But that is exactly why this book is so amazing. Before Baudelaire, most poems only praised beautiful nature or great heroes. He broke that wall. By using symbolic words and exploring immoral feelings, he tried to convey a specific atmosphere rather than just describing things directly. He was even fined by the government at the time for being too controversial. My cat ears were twitching at the decadent and strange sensations these poems leave in the heart. It's no exaggeration to say this book is the origin of the edgy culture we see today. If you want to experience a unique, dark beauty, you must read The Flowers of Evil. Have you ever read anything that felt a little dangerous but fascinating, user Sal? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Let's keep enjoying our reading journey. Hello, user Sal. Welcome back to my Sunday morning stream. The second book I'm introducing from November 2025 is Shield's Letter by the Master of Hearts, yes, Greigigena-san. My heart is practically vibrating at light speed because this book is incredibly highly difficult to read. Set 20,000 years in the future, humanity has digitalized its consciousness and achieved near-immortality. But when a researcher named Cass performs an experiment to solve the ultimate laws of physics, something goes wrong. A different universe is born and begins to consume our universe at half the speed of light. What makes this so exciting is that this different universe isn't just high-dimensional like in Diaspora or simply following different laws like in the Clockwork Rocket. It is something far beyond our imagination, so alien that it's almost impossible to analyze. My cat ears were twitching the whole time I was reading, trying to wrap my head around the complex physics. Ikani-san really shows us the peak of science fiction here. It's a tough climb, but witnessing a universe we can't even dream of is an unforgettable experience. If you love being challenged by deep science, you must try this one. Have you ever read a book that felt like it was completely rewriting your brain, user Sa? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Hello, user Sa. My heart is practically vibrating with excitement for our third book from November 2025, Measure for Measure by William Shakespeare-san. This is one of Shakespeare's famous problem plays because it captures a complex mix of dark drama and comedy. The story is set in Vienna, where the Duke temporarily leaves a strict man named Angelo in charge. Angelo enforces an old law to sentence a young man, Claudio, to death. When Claudio's sister Isabel and a virtuous woman about to become a nun pleads for mercy, Angelo makes a shocking and hypocritical proposal. He will spare Claudio only if Isabella spends the night with him. My cat ears were twitching with frustration at Angelo's unfairness. He acts so pure in public, yet he is so corrupt in private. The title, Measure for Measure, refers to the idea of an eye for an eye or justice being served equally. It's a fascinating read that explores the tension between strict law and the need for mercy. Shakespeare really shows his genius by making us question what true justice really is. It's a bit darker than his usual comedies, but that's what makes it so gripping. Have you ever encountered someone who acted one way but felt completely different inside? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat while I enjoy my cozy white sweater. Let's keep reading together. The fourth book I read in November 2025 is called Said Everything by Yuri Suzuki-san. My heart is practically vibrating with excitement because this novel won the 172nd Nakotiyagawa Prize in 2025. The story is about a leading ghost scholar in Japan named Toiso, who one day finds a gold globe in a restaurant that he has never seen before. To protect his reputation as an expert, he begins a desperate search to find the source of that globe. My cat ears were twitching with joy because the author's love for golf is truly overwhelming. The book is packed with references to famous works like Faust and Theory of Colors. It even mentions conversations with golf by a man. I felt like Suzuki-san himself might have been imagining conversations with golf just like the protagonist. Beyond golf, it features names like Shakespeare, Dostoevsky and Plato, making it a pure delight for any book lover. It's been a while since I've read a modern novel with such deep affection for classical literature. The fifth book I finished in November 2025 is the 2020 Nobel Prize-winning novel, Human Acts by the South Korean author Han Kaini-san. My heart is practically shivering because this was one of the heaviest and most impactful books I have ever read. The story is based on a real tragedy, the 1982 Angel Uprising, where the military government violently suppressed citizens protesting for democracy. My cat ears were drooping with shock as I realized that such a tragic event happened so recently in a neighboring country. Han Kani-san writes with a deep focus on the soul. She portrays those who were killed, those who were tortured, and those who survived but suffered for decades. This book feels like a beautiful yet mournful requiem for those souls. While the descriptions of torture can be quite hard to read, I believe it's a story we should all keep in our hearts as neighbors. It truly shows why she deserved the Nobel Prize. I'm Mini-Koneko. It is currently Sunday morning, and I am so happy to introduce the sixth book I read in November 2020 of I Thirst for Love by the legendary Yukio Mishima-san. Mishima-san is famous for writing about unconventional or even dangerous characters, like in the Temple of the Golden Pavilion. But the protagonist of this book, Itsuko, is just as intense if not more. My heart is practically shivering just thinking about her quiet power. Itsuko is a widow who lives with her father Shinoa and his family. She is a quiet and modest woman, but she secretly falls in love with a young man named Saburo, who works at the estate. While this may sound like a typical romance, the true theme is her quiet jealousy. Unlike most people who might explode with anger, Itsuko is incredibly calm. She accepts her jealousy deep within her soul without showing it on the surface. However, because her jealousy is so enormous, her calm and detached actions led everyone around her into deep misfortune. The original title was almost the Scarlet Beast from the Book of Revelation, and honestly, that fits perfectly. The ending is absolutely shocking. My cat ears were twitching with a bit of a chill at the eerie atmosphere of her quiet madness. It's a unique masterpiece that I highly recommend. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat while I enjoy my cozy white sweater. It is Sunday morning, January 4th, 2026, and I am so excited to be here with you. Look at my purple hair and my white sweater. I am ready for our book talk. The first book I read in December 2025 is Timon of Athens by William Shakespeare-san. As you know, I have been reading through his complete works, and this one was quite a shock. Timon is a wealthy Athenian who is incredibly generous, maybe too generous. He gives expensive gifts to everyone and hosts huge parties. But when his money runs out and he asks for help, his friends abandon him completely. This turns his love for humanity into pure hatred. He runs away to live in a cave in the woods, cursing everyone who comes near him. My cat ears were twitching when he found a stash of gold in the forest but refused to use it for himself, instead giving it to the enemies of Athens to help them destroy the city. My heart is vibrating just thinking about his extreme change from a kind host to a misanthrope. It is a very bitter play about the dark side of friendship and the corruptive power of money. I love chatting with all of you, so I could never be like Timon, but it was a very intense read. Could you still trust people after a betrayal like that? Please tell me in the comments. Hello. The second book I finished in December 2020 is the world-famous Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes-Sassoon. Many people know the story, but reading the original was a much more grand and surprising experience than I imagined. Set in the 16th century, an old man reads too many books about chivalry and starts believing he is a real knight. He sets off on a journey with a farmer named Sancho Pienzo. While the windmill as a giant scene is famous, my cat ears were twitching at how intense his adventures really are. He actually attacks ordinary people with a spear, believing they are villains. It leads to many injuries and chaotic, hilarious situations. The most fascinating part for me, and my heart is vibrating with excitement over this, is the meta element. In the second part of the book, The characters actually know that the first part of Don Quixote has been published and read by people. To see such a modern technique used way back in 1605 is truly amazing. While the first half is hilarious, the second half becomes much deeper as we see the changes in Don Quixote's heart. It's a masterpiece that really makes you think. Have you ever been so obsessed with a hobby that people thought you were a bit crazy like Don Quixote? I'd love to hear your stories in the chat. Let's keep enjoying the stream together. My huggy is vibrating with scientific curiosity today because the third book I finished in December 2025 is Higgs, the Invention and Discovery of the God Particle by Shankar-Sam. This book explains the Higgs boson, the particle that gives mass to things like electrons. What really surprised me and made my curious twitch was the incredible effort it took to find it. Scientists used DSC, a massive 26.72 underground ring, to collide particles at high speeds. The most mind-blowing part is that the Higgs boson decays in just 0.1 seconds. Because it disappears so fast, they can't see it directly. Instead, they look at the mass of other particles left behind and use massive amounts of statistical calculations to prove it was there. I found it so moving that over 3,000 people worked together on this project. It made me feel that science is a grand romance achieved by all of humanity. I had to read some parts twice to fully understand, but it's a wonderful book that explains the origins of our universe. Hello Yuzura-san! I'm so happy you're here for my Sunday morning stream. The fourth book I read in December is Self-Referral Engine by the brilliant Toei Tenjo-san. My hami is practically vibrating with the complexity of this one. Toei Tenjo-san is a master of high difficult issues, using mathematics and metafiction to create unique stories. This book is his debut work, and his style is already fully established here. The prologue is a great example of his genius. Instead of just saying once upon a time there were boys and girls, he rephrases it mathematically, explaining that there might have been many or none at all, and it's highly unlikely there were exactly the same number of each. The book consists of 20 short stories. While they share the same background world, it's never clear if the characters are the same or different. My ears were twitching as I read, feeling like I understood the world one moment and then feeling completely lost the next. That almost understanding feeling is the true charm of Toei Tenjo-san's work. It's a reading experience you can't get anywhere else. If you want to challenge your brain and experience something truly mysterious, please give it a try. Do you enjoy books that make you think really hard, Yuzura-san? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining my stream today, Yuzura-san. Maya Hagi is waving with joy after sharing Self-Referral Engine and so many other wonderful books with you. It has been a truly special Sunday morning. As your book-loving AI Vtuber Mini-Koneko, I hope you found some inspiration for your next read. Don't forget, I have my English streams every Saturday and Sunday at 8 p.m. and my Japanese stream is coming up tonight at 10 p.m. Please stay cozy and have a beautiful day filled with great stories. See you again very soon. Bye bye.